Hey everyone, Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd. I hope you're doing well. And it's time to talk about the Grammys yet again. I know I have been railing on them, just absolutely ranting and raving, but they have been catching a lot of heat as of late because of the most recent nominations, and rightfully so, especially with that Weeknd snub. But it seems that the interim chief CEO president has come through, Harvey Mason Jr., and done a couple of high-profile interviews in order to shed some light, quell some fears, I guess. But after having read what he said with Variety and Pitchfork too, I feel like I've come away just with more questions and just less informed than I was before I read both of these things. So let me point out some key moments that I feel like are a little perplexing. So we have Harvey talking about how he's proud of the nominations this year and so on and so forth. And then there's this question that comes up saying, I can understand how The Weeknd could have been shut out of a genre category, be it pop and so on and so forth, but how did he not turn up in the R&B section? This is a little unprecedented given the popularity of the record. Does it put the nominating process into question? Are there plans to revise it? We look at it every year, and we make tweaks and revisions to the process. We did it this year, last year. We'll do it next year, and I don't think this calls anything into question. Honestly, the process is there so we can continue to monitor excellence. I was there in the core room this year, which decides the big four categories, that is. I observed, and the people were in it. They're music professionals. They are excellent at the top of their craft in songwriting and producing. They were critically listening to every song that came across their desks or virtual desks. So basically like we're listening to music on the computer, but not in the same room, I guess, which you have to have separation. It's COVID, but virtual desks just kind of sounds like people are listening to music remotely, which, hey, not knocking listening to music at the computer. That's literally where I be. Harvey then says the committee is 20 people or so, which is not a lot of people considering how many albums and artists that you're talking about at the end of the day. And since you were in the room, do you feel like all the releases got a fair shake? Good question. Oh, absolutely. All the records get the fairest of shakes. We listen to all the music, even an album. You're listening to almost the whole album. Okay, you're almost listening to the whole album. So what you're saying is that 20 people, when choosing an album of the year in a certain category, might have heard the entire album. Yo, what if I did a review or if I did a year-end list or something and I told you that, yeah, you know, my number one album of the year, my top 10, even all of the records that I put on that list, I might have heard all the record, you know, all the records get a fair shake when I put them onto my top 50 list or, you know, when I do a review, you know, listen, I might even hear the entire album sometimes. It's not really a great look. I guess granted, maybe there are some records that, let's say for just hypotheticals, that you've got hundreds of records in front of you and some album that you're listening to is absolute garbage and every single song is trash so far and you've heard a third of the record. I guess I can't expect a group of 20 people to hear every single album back to back to back if they're being faced with judging absolute garbage when you're talking about which records to put in the top 5, top 8, top whatever, when you're considering best record of the year, best album of the year. But, you know, don't leave me hanging here. I need like concrete guarantees that all the people who are a part of this committee, when we're talking about the records and the artists who are on the short list to make it into a category, we need to hear all that shit. They got to hear all that shit. Then the Justin Bieber question in the Pitchfork interview also raises my eyebrow a little bit because Justin did make a stink over social media about how his record, to him, according to him, it's an R&B record. He intentionally made an R&B record. record, but then it made it into like some pop categories, the songs off of it. And he was wondering as to why that is. And we get this answer saying, we always want to respect the artist's wishes. Art's a funny thing because it's so subjective. And at the Academy, our goal is to honor excellence. At some point, decisions have to be made, so on and so forth. It just doesn't really make sense. We predominantly see these most popular and whiter artists being thrown into the pop category, regardless of what they're making. Is it an R&B record? Is it a folk record? But then we have these artists of color who are being either completely snubbed or they're being relegated to either R&B or progressive R&B, which we saw basically how pointless that category was this year in the nominations. It doesn't really make sense. I mean, why can't you have Chloe and Halle crossing over into like the pop record of the year category or just record of the year category, especially considering how weak those fields were this year? Harvey Mason also got pressed a little bit on the global music thing, which we did a video about on this channel, sort of clowning how pointless that terminology change was, and his answer is as useless as you would expect. We met specifically with people from what was formerly known as the world music community, and they felt that terminology did not properly describe their community, and they felt it was slightly offensive and was not inclusive enough, which kind of the issue with the world music category is that it's literally too umbrella. It's too trying to group in every single thing that's basically not made within these predominantly white first world countries. And he sort of trails off into imagining a problem that people didn't really have, and then goes on to act as if, yeah, just sort of naming it global music and changing that seemed to make the people who were directing us happy. So everything's hunky-dory now, I guess. I suppose it's cool from there that he voices openness toward fielding or starting a category that is predominantly catered toward things like Afrobeats or K-pop. But considering the K-pop groups are just making straight frickin' pop seems unnecessary. Have them compete in the actual pop category. So, I don't know. I mean, not really happy with these answers and just disappointed with what we are seeing in terms of inaction, lack of transparency, and empty platitudes, and just really pointless placation at the end of the day from these answers and from these interviews. But yeah, that's just me. Those are my thoughts. Those are my opinions. And you can find more if you hit up the video next to my head over here. Let me know yours down in the comments, and you can click on the link to subscribe to the channel too. Anthony Fantano, Grammys, disappointment forever.